I kind of want to just play this short. It shouldn't be like about 3 minutes or maybe at the most, and just get your feedback on it and tell me what you think about it.
Nice.
To set it up a little bit, is the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think these are intelligent black men, and I'm always kind of interested in what intelligent black men, especially young intelligent black men, are talking about, because that's kind of like it's the it's like the pathway for the future, especially if they have influence.
Right.
So, just want to hear what you think about this. Then, are you familiar with Marc Lamont Hill?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so he's been a political commentator a lot. He's a professor, PhD, Temple University. Now he's on the Joe Budden's podcast. He used to be on CNN before. He does some work on, what is that black channel that's on? Is that News One or something like that? Or News Nation or something like that? Like black news outfit on the internet. But does a lot of commentary. I think his PhD is in anthropology, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got fired from CNN because he made a comment about Israel that pissing people off. So that's him.
That's about right.
This
It's crazy.
is the Grits and Eggs podcast. And it's two dudes. The one dude that's the speaker most of the time is Deante Kyle. And he's like been up and coming for a while in the podcast space, and he's blackety black and black, it's super, super black, but whatever, I think he's smart. Don't always agree with the positions at all, but I just wanted to set up these two people just to say this, I respect, I think that there's intellect there. So I think there's something to be respected.
Just the idea of black futurity, the idea that black folk will exist in a future, that there is a world that includes black people at a time where we're told that black people don't have a future, or where we aren't necessarily convinced that there is a future.
Right.
That alone might give us the mental fortitude and the creative imagination to solve the problem of today. Because I know, like you said earlier, that somebody's grandmama or great-great-grandmama imagined a world that included us, even if they didn't live to see it.
Absolutely.
That kind of creative imagination might not be wrapped up in a political line, but it might be wrapped up in a gospel song.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I don't know that my pain can be healed, but then I hear that there's a balm in Gilead, or if I don't know how to deal with the dislocation of being an African in America, and I'm reading the Psalms, and I'm like, well, how do I sing the Lord's song in a strange land? And then black folks say, well, I sing because I'm happy.
Hey, because I'm free.
Yeah, free. Yep.
Hey. And I know he watches me.
Yep.
Man, look, bro. When I tell people that you need to plant a tree that you might not be able to enjoy the shade of, that is the whole concept.
That's what it's about, man. That's the beauty. But that's only if you get out of the European mindset.
Hell yeah.
You get out of what we call the Cartesian logic of cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, which is about the individual.
Yeah.
And you embrace the Ubuntu principle.
Yeah.
I am because we are.
Hey,
bingo.
There you go.
It's a whole different framework.
It is. And it's, and it, then, okay, this is so crazy. I didn't realize, now that you said it, I didn't realize like that's how I'm raising my children with the Ubuntu mentality, is that when you fuck up, everybody's in trouble.
Yeah.
Because now y'all will hold each other accountable. But not only that, when you good, y'all all good.
Everybody good.
And that's the important part. Otherwise, it's just collective punishment.
Yeah.
Right. But otherwise, you just do some Israel shit. But But no, we all benefit.
Yeah. Because sometimes I do that, like, like if there's a gross, like, oh, you just like ignoring these rules. Like you just being rebellious. And then I'd be like, all right, everybody give me their phones. Sometimes it's like, just to feel that, oh, not only like have I become responsible for his actions, but now you understand that your actions affect other people.
Exactly. Gwendolyn Brooks in her poem to Langston Hughes, said, "What we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond."
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
that as abstract as a concept that is going to be to some people, that is the simplicity that I live with. Right?
It's because they're interconnected. Just the idea of Black future.
Yeah, so that's all that is.
That's fair. I mean, I don't like the words. I don't like the language, but the concept is clear, and I appreciate that. That's a helpful point. It's like, hey, we need each other. Yes, we do. People are stronger together. We are. Yes, that is a cool point to make and key to remind everyone. Like, hey, there's a purpose here. It's going to require time, energy, effort, and sacrifice. The people who sacrificed for us got us to this point because they worked together to effectively build what we need to have now. I'm like, all right, yes, sure. Yes. Anyway, there is a danger for people to take this in a collective way and then say, this means I'm not a person without my community. It's like you're getting too excited. Let's stay focused on the true part.
I mean, I think it's beyond this a danger. I think it explicitly was said that. I think
was explicitly said. Yes, it's
Yeah.
true.
And I think, but I want to credit him with articulating it well, because the way he said it and what he said is basically you need to evaluate this with a different logic. And he criticized the European logic of being about the individual and characterized the African logic as being collective. And if you know anything, well, you know about my work, I'm explicitly saying the opposite thing.
Yes,
And
100%.
And the reason, and I think it was interesting to me, your response, because it was more of I feel like you accepted what he said, like in a colloquial sense, or like
Yes.
in a regular, yeah, he
I get
said
what you
this, but
mean.
he really means that. And my thing is, no, he knows exactly what he's saying. He's a PhD, and that's why he did it, said it specifically. Like, no, this is a specific logic, and this is a different logic. And I'm like, there's no way we should be going back to a primitive collective logic. Now, it'd be one thing if I'm just sitting here listening to somebody who's just kind of like lazy with the understanding of he knows exactly what he's saying.
He does. But also, anyone who brings up collectivism without addressing individualism is using a stolen concept. It's not possible for there to be a collective if there are not individuals. And therefore, if you disrespect the individuals, you cannot even get to a point of having a collective. And I think that it's disingenuous, it's foolish, it's unwise, it's wrong to start with the idea of collectivism is the hype. We have to do it because we have to work together. I'm like, hey, that's a great place for us to get to and work towards. But we have to start at the fact that we need to first have something. We can't share. We can't even talk about the idea of sharing unless we talk about the idea of production. We must get to production first. And then we can talk about rights. And then we can talk about what it looks like on a long-term basis for us to work together. Independence or interdependence is a actual value. There is a real case to be made. We just can't skip all the steps and end with, you just got to take care of each other.
Yeah. See, I think my attitude or understanding of this has evolved over time. Whereas I believe, from what I've learned, is that there really isn't a real legitimate conception of the individual until you get through the collective mentality. I think the collective mentality is like what you start with. Once again, it's back to that whole subject-object relationship of development, right? And I understand in general, I think what we've done is through development and understanding is we've been able to pull apart the pieces where as though a person can find their individuality, but individuality exists within a collective, right?
That's how it's framed.
Well, it has to be because humans are social beings and we have social relationships. So there's no world where we are totally isolated.
No.
And
Absolute
so,
absolute individualism doesn't exist.
right. But the whole idea of being able to individuate, that's what the whole individuation process from Jungian and what other psychotherapists talk about, like is that, yeah, there's a group, but you have to be able to individuate from the collective instinct. I don't know if they call it the shadow, but that part of it. So I understand what you're saying. Like, yes, that's true. Groups are a result of people, but developmental wise, social development, that's not so much the case. The individual is born out of the group, right? And our
Well, I
ability
mean,
to recognize it now and to hold space for the individual has been a development.
I mean, it's fine to say that the individual is influenced by the group. I just think that there's a social, no, that's the wrong word. There is a way that the current modern, postmodern society has talked about and thought about this idea of individualism and collectivism that is unhelpful. I'll say it that way. That's the kindest I can be. And I would love for there to be more of a focus on the logic of it. And I think, yes, it takes two people to come together to make a third person. And you're like, oh, look, see, we're social. I'm like, hey, those are multiple people. Sure. And the new person they made is being influenced by the parents, this society, by all this. Yes, influences exist from the environment, from the people in the environment, and from the other forces in the environment. Sure. That does not negate the fact that the new person that is made has a job, has responsibility to make their own choices, to become a person, to develop an identity, to form these things and make some building blocks of what they believe, what they care about, who they are. And that will be influenced by everything else around them. Sure. Cool. That influence, just because these influences exist doesn't mean the individual has to accept them or make them their own identity. We get choices. And because we have choice, we have an individual responsibility to put together a person and to build a life, to build a self that is worthwhile. And I think that is the part I want to emphasize more often. Like, hey, we get to make choices, you all. We have agency. These are things that we have the responsibility for. And that happens day by day. Sometimes it happens consciously. Sometimes we just go with the flow and just pick up whatever our environment gives us. Either way, these are choices that are made. And so I think I would love people to recognize that they have this responsibility and this agency to say all the time, growing up, whether you're good at it or bad at it, you did it.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying too is that is an end result. That is, from everything I'm understanding about that is an end result. That is a place that you arrive at or can arrive at going through the collective space. Like, there is these things exist as necessary ends. Like, if you look at Jung's types and functions, they both have to exist, the extroversion and the introversion, right? And so the whole concept is individuating from the collective, which to me, because if I look at Fromm and Jung and maybe even Rand, I'm not sure, but definitely Kegan, there's that whole process of there's a socialization process, But then after that socialization process, then there becomes a self-authoring process that you can then, or development level. But I don't think that you can go straight from before that socialization process to the self-authoring. I think you have to go through it.
I think you are always self-authoring, and we just sometimes are more aware of it. But after we've gone through enough of it and get that experience, by the time we've gone through a lot of that socialization process, we are much better at self-authoring when we're at the later stages of development. Maturity does give you that bandwidth, which I think is great. All I'm saying is that it's a responsibility of the individual throughout their lifetime to do it. And I think when
Well,
we don't acknowledge that, it makes me uncomfortable.
but see, the thing, there's a big distinction here that I think is so hard to explain. And that's why I tried to make the videos that I make on my channel. Because there's the steps 1 and 2. But I'm thinking about Kegan right now. And I mess these and I integrate these with these other these other systems of thought. But in step 2, it's really just impulsive and instrumental. And it's yeah, I'm self-authoring, but it's without regard to anybody else. It's
Yeah.
like, I want this, I'll take this. This is everything is mine. Everything revolves around me. And
Right.
then after that, that third step is the socialization process, which is like, oh, other people exist and things that I do affect them. Oh, I didn't even know they were there. Or, that whole realization. But
Yes.
then some people get stuck there and think like, oh, I'm just working in the social sphere. But then that's how you get to the self-authoring piece. The way that is defined in his system is that, yeah, I like things, I want things, but there are other people who are affected by my activities as well. But I can't let that totally define me. I'm going to make my own decisions with the understanding of how my decisions affect other people as well.
There
But
you go.
that's
Maturity.
but that seems very much similar to the instrumental phase. And I've heard Jordan Peterson say this is like independence, or I forgot what he said it, but independence or individualism is very much almost indistinguishable from narcissism. And but to me, that's that difference, that I'm independent and don't give a shit about anybody else, and I'm independent, and this is the principle I will operate, under with this group, and that's a big distinction.
That's huge. That's development. That's actual maturity throughout a process of thinking. So yeah, you don't if you don't start with that level of maturity.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that because the troubling thing about this to me in this particular video is that I have an understanding that this is the older way of thinking. This is what I would identify with tribalism, what I would identify with primitivism, and I don't see that as a goal. It's like, oh, the individual pathway is too hard. I'm going to go back where it felt good and comfortable. And it's not an ideal, and it's being painted as an ideal, whereas I'm like, well, rights don't exist there. Individual rights don't exist there because there's no individual to recognize. It's like, oh yeah, you and me and I'm you, and if you fail, I fail, and you can't. When you approach the world like that, you can't generate a justice based on individual rights. It doesn't exist. So, and I'm just accepting. Yes, I'm definitely going to accept the idea that, yeah, individual rights is better than the collective systems and groups versus groups, and because all that group versus group is just might equals right, and
Yep.
mob rule,
Mob rule.
and so it's not better.
I mean, it's not better, it's not moral, it's not good, it's not beneficial. Long term, it fails, it always destroys. It is a terrible reasoning process, and I think you could make a clear point that saying this is a way of thinking that has harmed lots of cultures, lots of people, It's a terrible portion in that sense. I think that part is clear. I don't think you can call it old. I think it's very recent that we're doing this, and I think it's very terrible in human history where we have used this claim to the group to appeal to for morality, because people who believe in collectivism will say you can have individual rights as long as we vote on it and we all say you can have it. Look, you can have it. I'm like, but that's actually not a moral stance. Yes, I hear you. You can just elect to treat people however you want to at a certain time, and maybe that'll last for 10, 20, even 100 years. But when those people who voted on that go away, the next people may say, maybe we don't like this group, and this group over here doesn't get individualized rights anymore. Maybe, for the good of the group, we should certainly make sure that this bad element is treated differently. I'm like, and this is what mob rule does. This is how pure democracies work. This is how majority rule goes. Like it's a terrible way of putting the locus of control in the quote unquote group, which always changes and is always being influenced by somebody more than another.
Yeah, I think so. When I say it's an older part, I'm saying that I think you really kind of had to understand how I view development, because I just think that born as a kid, we are naturally just collective. And when I say collective, I just mean that there's no distinction between self and other. I mean, this is what Kegan talks about. This is what a lot of people talk about when
they do talk about it. But like you just said, babies and children and people who are in the lower portions are the most self-absorbed people in the world. They don't, when there's only division between self and other, because others don't even exist. So they start off with that.
Right. But what, yes, that's true. But it's because they can't, because Jung says it's because the collective mind can only project. Like all they just pretend it's not pretending. All they do is they just assume that you obviously think what they think.
There you go.
And yeah, I think it's I don't necessarily think that it's knowing. I think a lot of times people are impulsive and they just haven't come to understand and be aware that other people have negative consequences from their actions.
Right.
But I still would identify with a collective piece, just because you really don't have any choice. There is a element of life and survival that you can't avoid, where just might is right. In social settings, and when it's just barbarism, you don't have to articulate it. You don't have to put it in philosophy, but you'll know might is right. I mean, I did an interview with one guy. He was like, back in the day, you had to be smart, but you also had to know how to fight. You know what I'm saying? Because because at the end of the day, you are vulnerable to the social happenings.
Yes. I mean, to the environment, period. You are vulnerable because you live on Earth.
Yeah.
And therefore, nature is going to have its way with you. And other people who have more force, more power than you in general, will exert that power, regardless.
Right.
And if you happen to be in the way, then you are the one who is wiped away or taken advantage of.
Right. And but this is the whole idea to me. This tribalism is rooted in. Oh, I've got more people. I've got bigger muscles. And then that's what I mean about the whole collective pieces. And then it's us versus them. They look like that. We look like this. We've got bigger people. And it's an instinctual way of being. That's how I look at it. I think it's a step in development. I don't think that I believe that it's all collective until you are able to exit and pull yourself out of that concrete mentality. That's the way that I've learned it and the way that I understand it. So, and the only one other piece that I would just like to put on it is that because people always get this mixed up when they hear individualism. They're thinking like, well, what you just want to be an asshole, you want to do whatever you want to do, and no rational individual thinks that. They just deal with people under certain terms, under certain principles. They deal with people under like principle of responsibility, of honesty, some theory of justice in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's and they don't I don't think any rational person is like, yeah, I don't give a shit about anybody. That's not a rational perspective. Like
Wait,
think about capitalism.
it's not a right perspective, but it is a common one in the sense of people frequently conflate all individualism with self-absorption, narcissism, and even abuse. They're like, those are the same. They're the same in my book. I'm like, oh, we have to make a clear distinction then between what it means to
Right.
be self-responsible versus what it means to be actively taking advantage of someone. Because you seem to think those things are the same. And that's a huge difference. And the big difference in between there is the justice, is the morality, and is the fact that if you are a true individual, you aren't taking advantage of others, because that wouldn't be individualistic. That would now rely on others. Do you see what I'm
Right.
saying? Like if you want to be a producer of a thing, of a widget, of a factory, of a fruit, if you want to be a farmer, you don't have to go and steal other people's fruit. You need to learn how to actually farm. See, farming makes sense. Stealing is different. Those are not the same, even though they're being done by one person. The one person is the thing they have in common. The actions are vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's the largest leverage point is to clarify that distinction.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people really understand what that distinction means. And I don't think that they understand that that distinction rests on the concept of choice. When you say morality, the whole concept of morality is about choice. Because if you're
Yes.
not making decisions, like what would morality be if everything was predestined and it wasn't based in choice? Like,
Right. It's just fate. It's no
yeah,
longer morality. Yes. Morality it depends completely upon the choices you make and the effects those choices have.
right. And to me, that's the collective perspective has an issue with that because from everything that I've learned, it's very much, has a tendency toward deterministic or determinism. And there are no choices, or the circumstances of your life dictate the choices that you make, and you don't really have any control over that. And that's why people fight for things like, we got to put money here because we know if somebody's poor and they grow up, then they're going to have problems. We have to set the factors of their life in a certain way that
Yes.
that deterministic aspect of life kicks in.
Right.
And
They think environment determines personhood and determines really just people's trajectory, which is the whole. Anyway, I agree. Yes, this is a collective trend, and a lot of people who have a collective mindset have a similar point where they do think that the environment, if we just change that, people's behavior will be magically different. And that's all we got to do. All you got to do is teach them. If you just told them the answers, they wouldn't do bad things anymore.
which
Wow.
is
You don't understand why bad things happen at all.
no. And I think the easiest way to understand that, well, an example is when you look at spoiled children, spoiled rich children, they didn't have the circumstances you think that was supposed to lead to bad behavior. But look, they didn't have to make decisions or they didn't have to deal with the consequences of bad decisions. And look how that turns out. So I think that relates just to the conversation we had with Lincoln. When action, when judgment, action, and consequences get disconnected, there's going to be a problem.
There you go. Yes. Every system needs good feedback. If you remove the feedback mechanisms from the system, it can no longer calibrate. It's only gonna go off from there. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's all I wanted to bring up as far as this talk, because I just thought it's destructive. I think it's
destructive and it's
destructive.
clear. This was a very specific, clear example of like, look, collectivism in its natural environment. I'm like, yeah, that was very well. He gave a collective point very, very specifically. He wasn't there was no mincing words. You have to
He's very
really
clear.
use your mind to be like, but what if it wasn't what he said? Then it would be like this. And I can understand how it could be different. I like the different. What he said sounded crazy, but like that's probably what people. That's definitely what he thinks. I mean, he's not lying to to you. He really thinks this.
I think a lot of people think that. I applaud him for being articulate about it, though. That's what, for him to say. He said the quiet part out loud.
Out loud.
That's what I love. You know, and at least he knew what he was. You need a whole different logic here. You need a logic that does not connect to the individual judgment of people. We need a collective judgment. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. No, thank you.